What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Nightmares Podcast, where we talk about all things horror, movies, music, film, and in this case, film. We're very excited to be exclusively going to guests. I'm here with my partner in crime, Mr. Zachary Smith. And then we have a very, very special guest from overseas today. We're very excited to have him, Mr. Adrian. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. If you'd be so awesome to introduce yourself to our awesome guests, our awesome viewers.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Well, my name is Adrian Țofei. I'm a filmmaker and actor from Romania, and I did a found footage film called Be My Cat, a Film for Anne in 2015, which is still being discovered by people because in the lack of a marketing budget and all that, literally it grew little by word of mouth. And also I have a film in which is in post-production now, which we've been working on for the last 7 years, an apocalyptic film called We Put the World to Sleep.
Nice, and we're so excited to get talking. I know Zach has a few questions that he'd like to ask a little bit later on. But as we start every podcast with our guests, we start with one question in mind, and it gets the conversation usually started, which was, where did horror enter your life? And where did it begin as a fan and as an interest? And then eventually we get to how did that blossom and develop into a career? So when did horror first touch your life? And when did it become an interest and maybe even a slight obsession like the rest of us crazy filmmakers? So.
Yeah, I think, yes, I believe it happened in childhood, actually quite early childhood. There was that period. I grew up immediately after the revolution, after communism fell in Romania. Practically, I was born in 1987. Communism fell in 1989 in Romania. So in those chaotic years, post-revolutionary chaotic years in the country, for the first time, they introduced cable TV, and they began showing lots of movies that were not allowed before in the dictatorship. And because everything was a total chaos in the country, politically, economically, everything, there was no such thing as censorship or. They would literally show extrememely disturbing or literally all type of footage they would show at noon, even in the day, without any warning that kids are not allowed or anything like that. So I've literally watched I think even with my mom as a very little child, all types of horrors, because people were not educated. They didn't think that, oh my God, we need to protect kids from something that can be seen in a movie, because before in the dictatorship there was no such thing. There was no such movie, not even for adults. They wouldn't allow any film that was slightly controversial in any way. Everything was very light. So it was a thing that hit us literally. Like all the greatest masterpieces from the 60s, from starting with Psycho and then with Carrie and then with Jaws, with all these ones, literally I I took them in from a very young age, which I don't think it's healthy to that extent, but what can I say? That's my history.
Zach had a similar experience growing up. Zach always loves to chat about his experience growing up with horror. He started very young as well.
Yeah, essentially, I was raised on those movies. Those movies have been around in America ever since they were released, 60s, 70s, 50s, the old drive-in horror, stuff like that. But I grew up with the 80s slasher, so Freddy, Jason, stuff like that. While I was watching Schwarzenegger and Stallone with my grandfather, my mother would be showing me Freddy, Jason, Pinhead, all those gory, horrifying slasher films, and I would just sit there with a smile on my face, just like, oh, this is awesome. Jaws, for example. I saw Jaws when I was 4, maybe 5 years old, and that actually started my obsession with sharks. I actually got to swim with sharks a few months ago That was a real fun time.
It's crazy how influences. I mean, my grandmother showed my cousin Jaws at the age of 5, and he didn't quite understand the concept of people getting eaten by sharks. So every 20 minutes, he would ask where Alex went. The little kid that got eaten, he would ask her, where did Alex go? And he's like, oh, honey, he went home. And then I think after about the 5th time of him asking, my cousin Sarah got fed up, and she turned around and said, the shark ate him, Kevin. Now shut up. And that was his childhood.
Wow, yeah. I think for me the one that had the biggest impact on me was Carrie, the Brian De Palma's Carrie. Yeah, I think that's and you can see the influence of Carrie even in Be My Cat, because it's this idea, this concept of a character that initially appears to be vulnerable and then becomes the ultimate force of destruction, so you kind of see a little bit of that paradox in my character in Be My Cat, because that's what you see, him constantly smiling and very exuberant and apparently positive person with a passion. And does those horrible things in the end. So yeah.
The actually a quick fun fact for you that you may not know. Sissy Spacek was so committed to her character, she actually stayed in that prom dress covered in blood for the entire 5-day shoot of that last scene. She did not change.
Wow,
she did not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she did not change her clothes at all, and she kept all the makeup on her face for the entire 5 days because she wanted to stay in that moment. And Brian De Palma encouraged her and everything else. It's pretty impressive to hear about that.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. I pushed things in even further, and now I regret, because we've lived kind of in character for the last 7 years for my
fair enough,
for my upcoming movie, for We Put the World to Sleep. But that was a mistake, because looking back, I'm not sure where my character ends and where I begin.
Well, that can sometimes happen. So there was something that you said that I'm very curious about, because this is a very because a lot of Americans, our audience is primarily American, maybe a little Canadian. So, they're not going to understand some of this, experience of just, just the generation before you was under communist rule. So I'm very curious about what your parents' reactions and maybe older relatives' reactions were to your passion towards some of these movies, and what a interesting cultural shock it must have been coming from a very buttoned up culture to something that's very horror is very freely expressed. I mean, it's no ambitions, no holds bar kind of expression. It's very visceral. So I'm very curious about how the older generation, maybe your parents or relatives or things of that nature, reacted to your fandom. Were they supportive, or were they kind of like, well, that's kind of strange, and and about some of these movies that were coming in that were exciting you so much?
Well, at an early age, I wasn't. I can't say that I was a horror fan or anything like this. I was just watching whatever they were showing on TV. And the only person that I can talk of is my mom, because my father died when I was very young, and also I didn't grow up with I don't have brothers, sisters. I didn't grow up with any grandparents. So only my mom. Was just me and my mom watching whatever they were showing on TV. And initially, I remember her reaction. I think when they first when they showed Psycho first. I think we were both waiting to see what that movie is, and she only knew Anthony Perkins from some romantic comedies or stuff like that, and she thought maybe Psycho would be something similar.
Not so much.
Not so much, yes. But then, as far as I remember, there was no such discussion. I mean, there wasn't the word horror even, or something like that. They would just advertise these films, and I would just show them, and my mom would just watch them, and we would be, wow, this is so interesting. And I remember she liking them as well. So I've never experienced any sort of judgment or being looked down or judged in any way for watching his films, because I don't know, we were just exposed to them and both of us enjoyed them. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you bonded over them and everything else, and that must have been a trip for her. I mean, you're talking about Psycho, that is about a crazed murderer who's obsessed with his mother and dresses like his mother. So that's, I mean, if we're gonna really break this down and everything, so I mean, that must have been very interesting to see that type of thing. And
later, only later, when I started to kind of be aware of what the horror genre is and all these things, only later my mom became like, when I actually developed a passion for film history, and I started to really watch, to seek all the masterpieces and to really understand and the filmmaking and all that. That happened in my teenage years during high school, and not from a horror movie. That happened after I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey. That was like my biggest revelation, because up till that moment I was watching movies the same way you would, I don't know, you would listen to music on MTV. Back then there was only MTV. That's the only way to listen music. I mean, I wasn't aware of the experience, or I wasn't aware of the fact that I was getting in touch with a certain art, or with the art of cinema, a certain culture. I became aware of that after 2001: A Space Odyssey. And later, very interestingly, for example, my mom is a huge fan of thrillers, but not horrors. So, for example, her favorite film, I think either first or second favorite film of all time, is The Silence of the Lambs.
Good one.
So, but I've shown her John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. And she absolutely loved it. It's in her top 3 favorite movies. But then I've shown her Halloween, and she absolutely hated it. So when there's an intense thriller that literally is so brutal that literally she loves it. But the moment it a little bit steps into the horror zone, she hates it. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, no. And plus, man, there's plenty of people that are not, that can't delve into that, which we've discussed many times. So you said something that was interesting that really struck me was, you said specifically about 2001: Space Odyssey and how it inspired you. What specifically, made that switch in your head from being a passive film fan or a movie fan to really diving into the art form of filmmaking? I mean, because I think most people can pinpoint, most people, and we're both, I've been acting since I was 10, and I do executive producing. Zach does directing and post work. So I think most of us can really, pinpoint a movie that we go, you know what, I bet I can do that. I bet I can do that. So what was it about 2001: Space Odyssey that really struck you to say, yeah, I could probably get into the filmmaking business, or at least appreciate the art of filmmaking?
Yeah, I don't think that's when I wanted to make films. I don't remember that, but in 2001: A Space Odyssey, there was definitely the metaphysics, the idea that a film would try to talk about the entirety of our existence. I mean, past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they would try to talk about all these huge metaphysics about where everything comes from and where it goes to. The fact that you can attempt to express the immensity of our entire existence, of the existence of the universe and all the metaphysical questions and everything. The fact that you can put that into 2 hours, into a work of art of 2 hours, that like literally, it's like literally gave me like gave me goosebumps, when I first saw those scenes from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and later when I was and later I went to acting school. Actually, I didn't go to film school. I went to acting school and learned very good method acting, Romanian method of acting. And after I finished the acting school, I did a little bit of theater. But I realized that theater is not, it's not what I really want. So I after a while, I returned to my old passion for film, practically. So I made a connection. I remembered that I had watched the Blair Witch Project years ago. That happened after I did the acting school. And I remember that I had watched the Blair Witch Project, and I realized, like, oh my God, the method that I've been applying, the improvisational method, the theater directing method, everything that I was trying to apply into theater, I was trying to. I've learned from this great Romanian acting teacher and theater director called Ion Kojar. So he had this philosophy that a theater show mustn't look like a show at all. Like he said that audiences, when they look, they must have no clue whatsoever to remind them that what they see is fiction. They must be like, oh my God, is this happening for real? Should we intervene? Should we stop them?
Yeah,
is this really happening?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a disposition of disbelief. The ability
exactly.
ability to say that this is that I'm in this.
Exactly. So then after I learned all this stuff, when I returned back after doing some theater and some acting, when I returned to my passion for film, and I began this project, I began to work on this project on Be My Cat, a Film for Anne, or my first feature. Mm-hmm. That's when I remembered, like, oh my God, what I was trying to do in theater, what this Romanian acting teacher and directing teacher was trying to do in theater, these guys, Ed Myrick and Daniel Myrick and Ed Sanchez, and they actually did in the found footage genre practically. Mm-hmm. in the Blair Witch Project, like they tried to remove any element whatsoever that would remind audiences that it's a movie, trying to look real. And also the way they worked with they work with the actors, the way that not having a script practically, and which allowed you to go through this discovery process, through this authentic, that allowed this controlled improvisation that can give natural and authentic performances that look real, not like in the way you see in Hollywood movies, I mean, those performances in Hollywood movies are powerful, they are really powerful, but if they were to be included in a found footage film, nobody would believe that. You can still feel that they are too well constructed.
Polished.
You can feel, that they are polished, that they are scripted. So it's not pure reality practically. Yeah. So what they did with the Blair Witch Project, by not having a script, but at the same time still directing the movie, by controlling the circumstances of, how should I say, of that fictional reality that they put the actors in. They put them in the woods. They scared them. They were cold. They were hungry, and all that. So practically, the directors controlled the circumstances of their reality so that it becomes as real as possible, but without being abusive towards the actors. I mean, they knew what they are going into, so practically they accepted this because they knew that this would lead to great acting performances and all that. So when I understood all these things, I realized, like, oh my God, I can do it. Like, this is what I did. This is what I did in my acting school. This is what this actor, teacher, and theater director was teaching us. I did the same things in theater. I mean, then wow, I can do it. I can do it in film.
Yeah, it's amazing when you learn that. And and I come from the school of thought, from the Meisner technique. A lot of improvisation, a lot of acting is reacting, I'm reacting upon your thing. For example, right now I'm telling you things right now, and you're acting interested, so therefore I'm going to keep telling you what you are, and then you're smiling, so therefore I'm going to keep saying what I'm saying and everything else so that's in that Meisner technique. And also too is just the Blair Witch Project. I always joke, and I joked this to Zach quite a bit. I said if I was going to write a book on film marketing, chapter 1 would be Blair Witch Project, because that is some of the most brilliant marketing I've ever seen in existence. And you can't do that again. Not to that degree and not to that effect where you had. I don't know if you know the story. They obviously they pushed this as being.
I know what they did.
But eventually it was I believe it was either the FBI or some high-end detectives or the general marshal called the filmmakers to say, we'd like to open up an investigation on the missing persons of these people. What people can you provide? And what information can you provide? And then they said, all right, the FBI is getting involved now. So now we have to come out and we have to say that this wasn't real. This wasn't a real thing. But it got to that point where the legal system was going to get involved and ask them. So the use of the early internet and to provide it and essentially create kind of a creepypasta was next to, amazingly brilliant. And I saw a little bit in your film too, in the trailer, about the police. I
could have done. Initially, I planned on going on the same path. I planned on releasing on YouTube some fragments from the film, and me creating some social media accounts as if I'm really that psychopath obsessed with Anne Hathaway, like literally releasing some things as if they were real. But then I dropped the idea because I realized that I was afraid that some people, even in the industry, that some festivals that I was sending the film to and stuff like that, I was afraid that they might believe that this was indeed that at least some of it was real, and then they wouldn't select my film. They wouldn't take me seriously as a filmmaker because of that. It's not that I actually killed actresses, that I don't know, that I abused them in any shape or form, because already some people are watching the movie and they are worried for the safety of the actresses. I mean, the executive producer of the film, this is unbelievable. Like, one of the executive producers of the film, while I was shooting the movie, I sent him some footage privately to watch, and then without telling me, he got worried. He contacted the actress to make sure that she is okay, that she hasn't been actually chloroformed in that scene. Because
that's fantastic.
This is crazy, yeah. So you can understand why I didn't go with my initial plan of trying to make this look real, because of the cultural difference and stuff. Like, if such a myth would have been thrown out in the US market, that there is this crazy guy in Romania who kind of abused people to do this film, even if later I came out to say, no, this is not real, the myth would be bigger than my power to crush it and to put the truth out there.
Yeah,
and this might have hurt me, literally. Might have hurt my career. So that's the only reason I didn't do it.
I think it was Mark Twain who once said that a lie will get halfway around the world before the truth wakes up and puts its pants on.
Exactly.
So let's get into it though. Let's start like because you kind of already dived
Yeah.
into it. So let's talk shop. Let's talk filmmaking for a moment about this film. So I know that Zach had some questions, and I'm sure he'll jump in. This is a very interesting concept and everything else. So and obviously I know that you came from and explained the acting backgrounds and the realism and everything
Hmm.
else, but let's go into pre-production for just a second. How did you come up with this specific idea? Because it's a very specific, obviously, there's a crazed person who's obsessed with Anne Hathaway, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, wants her to actually play his cat in a film. So I'm curious, how did you come up with this initial concept? And did you go through like a couple different ideas about celebrities?
Yeah,
How did that come in?
initially I played I did a one-man show in Romania, which was inspired from a bunch of other monologues, but I adapted it. I kind of wrote it myself in the end. So I did the same thing, like kind of like in Be My Cat. Like I did everything, directing it, writing it, acting, and everything. So in that one man show, I was playing this guy who was like again was having some mental issues, and he had an obsession with an actress, with a Romanian actress, and had some problems with his sister's cat and stuff like that. So when I decided to leave theater behind and to go back to my childhood and teenage passion for film, that's when initially I wanted to adapt the one-man show into a movie. But then, as the film project evolved, it became a totally different story. But I kept the psychology of my character. My character hasn't changed a lot from that theater show. So I had to keep in the movie the main traits of his psychology. One, this obsession with an actress. But of course, since I wanted the movie, sorry, so I wanted the movie to be to have an international audience. I couldn't use a Romanian actress. And by the way, in the theater show, again, I was using the name of a real Romanian actress, and that also caused a little bit of controversy because, same as with the movie, people assumed that I might be for real obsessed with her and all that, which I wasn't. But so I decided to use the same concept, like use a real actress. Of course, had to be an internationally known actress, so that people would connect to the story, and also had to be an actress that has something to do with cats, because I wanted to keep in the psychology of my character this cat obsession, obsession with girls and cats. He associates girls with cats and stuff like that. So exactly around the time when I was developing and I was thinking, when I was brainstorming the concept of the movie, that was in 2012, two movies came out. One was Les Miserables with Anne Hathaway, and I was like blown away by her performance in Les Miserables. And the other one was The Dark Knight Rises, again with her playing a Catwoman. And I realized, wow, like I was blown away by her performance in Les Miserables, but my character can be blown away by her performance as Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises.
That's
so
fantastic.
so that's how everything literally came together in this way.
That's so interesting. And then obviously found footage is a little bit easier to get going and everything else. There isn't as much pre-production that's required and everything else. But did you just mentioned that there was an executive producer attached to this and everything else? Was there a budget? Did you work out a budget for this? And and how did that all work out with the planning?
Yeah, I would
stages
say
of this?
that found footage is much harder to do than traditional footage from one perspective. I mean, yeah, if you want to do a found footage the way some people talk, like, oh, I could do any time of found footage. I just take my phone and shoot something. Yeah, that wouldn't be probably good if you just do it. But if you really want to have a powerful film, you need a ton of preparation in advance. I mean, this for me was 1 year of living in character. Literally, I stayed at home. I didn't go out of the house for 1 year, literally not interact with anybody, like literally to a point of fucking up my psychology and all that, you know, moved with my mom. And like, I tried to transform into a reality, that fictional reality that I wanted to have in the film. So when I start shooting, that reality is already there, you know, so that I don't have to act, I don't have to pretend, because in a traditional film, you can act, you can pretend a little bit, but in a found footage film, you can't pretend. Like it's felt immediately. You audiences feel that it's fake, feel that it's not real. So for that, I needed to prepare in advance all these circumstances. For example, the actresses. I met them for the first time with the camera on. I did the auditions online, and I met them directly in character. The moments that you see in the film that he meets the actresses, that's when actually I met the actresses for the first time. But there was a lot of preparation in this. This was not, because I know that some people, when they watch Be My Cat, they think they are a little bit afraid that I might have used some abusive techniques in working with the actresses. Actually, no, because everything was planned in extreme details. Like there were tons of emails between me and the actresses in advance. For example, and there were rules. There were different rules that we were supposed to follow during filming. One of the rules was that whenever you see me filming, whenever you see the camera on and you see me speaking English, that means that I'm in character. Whenever you hear me speaking Romanian, that means I'm out of character. So this language switch was essential. So practically when they arrived, you know, with their parents, literally, and Sonia was taking her luggages from the car and all that. The moment she saw me with the camera and heard me speaking English, not Romanian, me saying hi, immediately the switch was made in her mind. Oh shit, we're already in character. It's already the movie, you know. So this helped us a lot during filming to not go crazy, you know, because obviously it was me as a director giving instructions to her as the actress, but also me as a psychopathic director giving instructions to the actress played by her. So in order to differentiate between these two, the language switch helped us a lot, and also helped us, for example, in moments that were kind of a little bit crazy. For example, the moment when Sonia calls the police, that happened for real. She actually called the police in character. I mean, we were improvising, and I gave her a goal. I remember I gave her an improvisational goal. I said, during improvisation, you need to do everything possible to reject me. I mean, to antagonize me, or to really reject my character as much as possible. You know, do the most that you can do. So literally, while improvising, she literally called the police for real. Called the equivalent of 911 in the U.S., which is 112 in European Union.
Wow. That's pretty wild, man.
That's pretty wild. I've been asked these questions sometimes, like by people, like, oh, but like, weren't you worried or scared or afraid, or what was in your mind when she called the police? And for a second, you know, it was a little bit of shock, you know, but then immediately seeing her continuing to speak English, not Romanian, immediately it was in my mind, okay, we are still improvising. This is not Sonia feeling unsafe because the way we work on the movie and calling the police on me or anything like that. No, she's in character doing what I told her to do.
No, that's crazy. And actually, it's very interesting to, you know, in other found footage, you have, you know, safe words and everything else. That might be the most effective safe word I've ever heard to just switch languages.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Like, you know, and obviously, you know, a lot of people in the U.S. can't do that. We're not as
Yeah.
bilingual over here, but like, that's a very brilliant technique. So I was going to ask you too, is, you know, you talked about preparation. And by the way, if you're ever explaining this, there is a phenomenal acting game. It's one of the oldest games. It's called Somebody Leaves, Somebody Goes. And the idea is it's an improv exercise where one person's goal is to leave the room and the other person's goal is to get them to stay in the room.
We did it.
It's a great exercise. Yeah, you did it for the whole movie.
I know.
That whole exercise was the movie. But so
a lot of the things that you saw in Be My Cat were actually inspired from acting exercises. For example, the moment when I'm telling Sonia, okay, you are not allowed to run, but I forgot what was that thing.
Run, sit, crawl, or and there's different versions. Run, walk, crawl, like sit, stand, lay down. There's all different, you know, different ones. And
I meant the moment in Be My Cat when my character is telling her, oh, you cannot get closer than 1 meter from me, but at the same time you are not allowed to run. So practically, this we would often be given during improvisations in acting some difficult tasks, you know, like things that are very, very hard to accomplish in practice, because by trying to do them, that would make you very focused as an actor. You know, you don't think anymore the fact that you are acting and stuff like that. You start on really working on a real problem to solve that problem, you know.
Yeah.
So that's right. So practically that moment is Be My Cat is inspired from an acting exercise.
I absolutely love that. So, you know, you talked about planning, you know, a lot of planning and everything else, and you were discussing it with, you know, with the actresses and how it's very, very, you know, meticulous. I'm very curious about how you took some of that meticulousness into the part of directing with dealing with everybody else, dealing with camera, locations, you know, lighting. You know, obviously it's found footage, but like you said, found footage, if you want to make a good found footage movie, you have to have a meticulous amount of planning to make it feel authentic. But I'm very curious about, you know, the other aspect, the other side of the camera. You know, how did you work with your executive producers on this? How did you work with locations? How did you manage the world around you?
It was just me. Again, in order to have an authentic film, it was just me and the actresses. There was no other crew present, literally nobody. Just me and the actresses on location. Again, in order to preserve that sense of for both me and them to feel as if they are in this movie, as if they are in the reality of this movie. Because if we had any crew members present, that would take away from that. So again, this was planned. The location I was found for me in advance, and I got so thankful for finding it, because I was trying to rent like a big place and it was so hard to find. And finally I found this. I think I put an announcement on social media. Yeah, I put an announcement on my Facebook a young man from actually one of my neighbors. But we didn't know each other. It was like a little bit down the street. So his father had this little motel, you know, something like that. So we just rented that place for 2 weeks, I think, for 2 weeks, to shoot the film. That's how the location was done. The executives and a part of the movie, a part of the budget was crowdfunded, and the other part was we had some investors as well from both from Romania and the US. And again, they were found on the ones from the US. I remember were found on the first one, at least in a Facebook group. I mean, literally, I put announcements in Facebook groups, and that's how I found them. Yeah, but I didn't work on a lot of the. I mean, everything. The entire management of the production was done by me. I didn't have I didn't have any crew there, not just during shooting, even in post-production or pre, that there was just me, doing everything. And it was really stressful, extremely stressful. I mean, and also especially afterwards in the post-production, like, because I didn't know practically, I've learned filmmaking and I've learned film production and film editing, literally everything from scratch. I learned everything by doing,
It's the best way to
like,
do it.
yeah, I mean, if you can imagine, initially when I began editing, I downloaded this program called Premiere Elements, not Adobe Pro, not Premiere Pro. Because I thought, okay, since I never edited a film in my life, that's a bit too advanced for me. So I did it with Premiere Elements, which was like the downsized version of it. So you can imagine, initially I put the entire film with the sound as it was recorded from the camera,
Wow. Okay.
Like I had no knowledge that actually on a film you need to do sound compression and sound editing. And I'm sending the first cut, to the actresses for feedback. And I think Sonia is writing back and saying, but isn't there something wrong with the sound? I need to put my volume constantly up and down, up and down.
That's a good learning curve.
Yeah, and then I'm Googling, it's like, oh my God. And then I began this, literally, I think 2 months it took me just to do the sound, literally. Like piece by piece, like literally every second, putting the different type of compression, putting up, putting down, because everything was recorded from the camera's microphones. We didn't have, so yeah, it was a monumental amount of work, both because, I mean, even if I was a professional and already knew how to do this, it would still be a monumental amount of work because we had so much improvised footage. But since I had no idea of how to do any of these, like literally first you learn and then you realize it's not good, and then you go back and you again do it and again and again and again till you learn and finally do it the right way. So it was Be My Cat editing. Be My Cat was the first time I had anxiety in my life. I never had anxiety or panic attacks, and kind of fucked up my psychology. This film.
If anybody's gonna feel your pain, it's gonna be Zach. He's our resident post guy. I mean, he was doing stuff on Microsoft Paint or whatever back in the day.
Windows Movie Maker.
So I mean, he was way back and everything else, back when you can only do one line of film and one line of sound, and you couldn't even multi-thread the film, so you had to export and then put it back in. It was a crazy thing. So
I can understand that.
So I'm curious, because obviously this is an improvisational thing, and you told me about the story with the police, but we love hearing fun stories or funny stories or crazy stories from production. Did you have the general public accidentally walk into this? I know there's a few shots from outside, and anything funny from the general public that went down during filmmaking that I'm sure was very interesting.
Nothing. There was one guy. I mean, there in the basement, there was a room. And there was a guy living there, a homeless guy. I mean, the owners of that place, they took pity on him and allowed him to sleep in one of the rooms there in the basement. Not as bad as the rooms that were seen in the film. I mean, he had heating and a little bit of heating and all that. So the owners told me that the guy during the torture scene, like he was like telling them like, oh, something's happening here. You need to call the police and all that. So
that's fantastic.
And the other thing that happened with we didn't have much interaction with Viggo because I did it in a way to not have to do with too many people, to not have issues with people. The other stuff that happened is not a funny thing actually, because we had this this bully, who was kind of drunk, and he was kind of catcalling one of the actresses while we were trying to shoot. So we had to stop shooting, and I had to talk to this guy and talk to the owners of this place to talk to him. And that was a disturbing situation, you know, because, and that's when I felt like the need, like, oh, I wish I had I wish I had security, you know, on set. And kind of made me think, oh, if I ever do something like this again, it's good to have security, even if it's found footage and we don't need them in the picture, at least somewhere far away, you know, just in case we have some idiots like this that are becoming abusive.
No, absolutely. And then in the same realm of seriousness, what ended up happening with the cops? Because she called them for real. So I'm curious on what ended up happening.
That the cops were they were great. Literally, we told them that we were making this film, and one of them said, yeah, I understand. So, like one of the cops were saying that I just told them a couple of words, literally, that we are making a film and this, and then one of them interrupted me. No, I understand. So the intensity of her acting became so real that she had to make the call. Yeah, it makes sense. That's what the cop was telling.
Yeah, no, it's really cool that they were very supportive.
They were very cool and didn't. Normally, when you do something like this, you get a fine actually. When you call emergency services for no reason, but they were really cool and only gave us a warning, you know.
Oh.
Practically that's the only reason why I got scared when Sonia called the police. Not because I would have to pay a huge fine from an already very small budget. That
would be rough. That'd be rough. So, all right, I have the ultimate question.
Damn.
Has word gotten back to Anne Hathaway?
Nothing. Nothing. Yeah.
I was just too damn curious. I had to know.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? I know that you mentioned that the original one man show was based on a Romanian actress. Did word ever get back to that Romanian actress?
Yeah, and she wasn't happy with.
I hope she realized that it was all, you know, make believe and everything else. I know it was very intense, but I'm hoping that somebody explained to her eventually that it was all, above board and not real. But maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Probably because being a smaller community, Romania and stuff like that, probably, and not knowing me and what I do and stuff like that, and also I did the mistake of not the mistake. Yeah, I wrote an article on the internet on how I did that one man show. You know, so I also mentioned how I picked her and stuff like that, and I think everything felt too creepy, a little bit too much for her, you know. I mean, like an invasion of her privacy in a way, you know, by mentioning her name in that article and her name being mentioned, you know, and being a much smaller community, you know, the artist, the theater or the acting community in Romania, yeah. But on a global level with Anne Hathaway, I don't see any reason of why she would be disturbed that this film exists.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. I would have expected the Twitterverse or somebody to catch fire of this and tag her in it, because that would have been interesting. But...
Yeah, she's not on Twitter. She only has Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, well then there you go. There you go. So I do know that that's obviously this got, you know, pretty good reaction, from that, so I have two questions. Is one, how do you feel about the reaction? I mean, it won several awards and it was, very widely, publicized, and a lot of people really liked it, just watching some reviews from the horror community and some people that were like, wow, this is really good for, for a found footage situation. So I'm very curious about what your reaction has been to such the positive feedback.
my feeling to all this is a kind of a bittersweet feeling, because to be honest, I was hoping to also a little bit make a living out of this film. I was hoping to get picked up. I was hoping to get into a bigger festival like South by Southwest, which we missed, like literally, because initially I did a longer version of the film. It was 109 minutes. And they wrote back to me and they said, we really love the concept and all that, but it's just too long. And then I didn't make a shorter version and to wait 1 year to resubmit to South by Southwest. I submitted to other festivals, so we couldn't get one of these top 10 these festivals that have the power to make or break a film.
Sure.
So because of that, it was really, really, really hard finding a distributor. It took like 3 years to just find a distributor. And then after finding a distributor, it was, again, it took a lot of time for it to become known and talked about, because this distributor that I found didn't put money into marketing and all that, because it's not one of these powerful distributors that can really put your film out there and to millions of people, So it's still, because of all this, I couldn't make any real money with the film. And also it took a lot. Like right now it's like 7-8 years now. It took a lot for it to have a more direct impact on my career. For example, now I'm working on another project which I cannot talk about because it has to stay secret.
Of course.
Yes, and this thing came recently, kind of a year or two ago. I was so happy. So it took a lot of time for Be My Cat to bring me something in terms of career, as a filmmaker and as an actor. And I mainly use this period to develop my my second indie film, We Put the World to Sleep. Yeah.
Nice. The so I mean, the old expression, slow and steady wins the race. I suppose with this and this open up the doors for you. And and I'm curious because I'm not as familiar with with how film hits in other countries. I'm very curious about what the reaction is in your home country versus elsewhere. How does or is it about the same?
It's not much known in Romania. I'm not part of Romania doesn't have an indie film community or a united horror film community. Horror fans are scattered here and there, and sorry, and I've spoken a bit too loud and my throat.
No, trust me, it happens to the rest of us. We got a whole day worth of podcasts, so I understand.
Yeah. So it's in Romania we don't really have an indie spirit of filmmaking. So when I did this film, other people in the industry were like, "Who is this guy and where did he come from?" Because here you need to go through a certain process. You need to have a lot of need to go to study, to do a film school. I mean, nobody did a found footage film in Romania. In Romania, the only types of films that are made are these films that get. I'm not sure if you are aware of the new wave. There's this Romanian new wave, these artsy films. The Cannes film, the Cannes types of films,
Yeah, for sure.
That done with quite of a bigger budget, which comes from the state budget, But in order to receive those money from the state, you need to have tons of connections and a film school, and you need to work classically, traditionally, So there is no indie scene practically the way I did. Just somebody, just a dude taking a camera and struggling on his own and doing the film. And just the way there isn't something like that in the film, in the filmmaking world. Again, also there isn't a fan base, a united fan base. We don't have conventions like horror conventions or anything like that. So there is no such thing as a horror community or found footage community in Romania. People are scattered, one here, there, in different cities. So from time to time, I get happy when I hear somebody from Romania saying like, "Wow, I liked your film," because it happens very rarely. And when it happens, very interestingly, they learn about my movie not from a Romanian source. They are following U.S. YouTubers and stuff like that.
It's a roundabout circle.
Exactly, and they are like, "Wow, why didn't I ever hear about this film from my own country?" It's not. It didn't make any waves in Romania. I'm more known. I'm more known in the indie filmmaking scene and among the horror community in the U.S. in the English-speaking world than I am in Romania, actually.
I mean, because at the end of the day, you kind of, just hearing what you're saying, you took a playbook out of how Americans do things. Like we're just, we're just gonna go do it. I don't need the system. We're just gonna go do it. It's that kind of attitude of approaching the situation, which I commend you for.
I literally applied the American dream literally with this thing. This do-it-yourself indie spirit, which I learned again by watching American documentaries, by watching American films. I got that spirit because here in Romania, people don't have it, and especially the students that I've realized that a lot of the students that study film, that there is only one film school in Romania, actually two, but one is the major one in Bucharest. So I've realized a lot of the youngsters that go to study film there, at the end of that school, they are more afraid to make a film than they were initially, because they are being told about all the things they need to make a film. In order to make a feature, you need to first make a lot of shorts. In order to make a lot of shorts, you need a lot of that. Like there are all these things, like tons of things you need. They are, and they literally are paralyzed. Are afraid to even start it. And I was free from that thing. I tried to free myself from everything that people are saying that you need to have in order to make a film, so, and that's my advice as well for everybody who wants to go into filmmaking, because sometimes I'm asked, what is your advice about how to go into filmmaking? And my first advice is to ignore all the things that are being said by others about what you need to do in order to go into filmmaking. Just find your own way. Literally see what works for you. Literally just start from something and just totally throw yourself into that, and then you will find the solution as you move along. Because if you look too much at all the things that others people say and articles say and that you need to make a film, you can become discouraged. You can feel like, oh my God, it's impossible for me to reach all those things. So, yeah.
All right. I think I'm gonna move into the question of the podcast. This is where we normally wrap things up, because I don't think I want to end on any other note except that, because that was beautiful and brilliant. So I don't want to end on any other note but that. So
Okay.
And actually that kind of leads me. And so the question of the podcast is a fun thing that I make up right at the end. We kind of go around the horn and we give our answers. As it is tradition, the guests are allowed to go first, but they can pass if they need a little bit more time. And this is kind of in the same spirit of what you were saying. If as a filmmaker, if you were going to start over with the knowledge that you know right now, what would you tell yourself from back then. If you can go back in time and talk to yourself who's just starting out, what would you say to that person?
Definitely keep it as short as possible. Not even 87 minutes. Like, make it 77. I would have made this film not even 77, 70 minutes. Like, keep it as compact as possible in order to be selected to have a chance at top festivals. And when I say top festival, I'm not talking about like good. There are a lot of good festivals, like really the top of the top, the top 10. Really make it as short as possible. That's one thing. Second would be, authenticity. It's good. It's wonderful, but still, maybe use a little bit of color correction, a little bit of color grading. Make it look a little bit filmic. A little bit cinematic. Not that much raw, because a lot of people in the industry and might look at it and say like, this is not a film. It looks a bit too raw, just to help my career, without taking away from the authenticity of it, or the natural, not too obvious, but just a little bit. That's another thing. And the third thing, what else? Yeah, I think these two, because these two, I think, would have helped me have a different path. Would have a bigger festival would have meant a bigger distributor, like everything would roll, would be like a snowflake ball, like everything would become bigger from there, and probably my path would have been different as well.
Yes.
I mean, I would have achieved, let's say, the level of that I would have reached the level that I reached now, which is a lot of people in the horror community learning about the film and stuff. That probably I would have reached it much earlier, like let's say 3 or 4 years ago.
Sure.
And now, and by this time, I would have probably already started making a living out of films, having more projects and all that. And that's very important ultimately.
Yeah.
Making a living.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So those little touches and as well. So Zach,
Yeah.
what about you?
I would say stop trying to be a one-man army. That was probably my biggest problem when I first started. I wanted to do literally everything on my own, post-production, camera work, act, like everything you could possibly do. If I didn't necessarily require somebody, I would be like, nope, don't need them. I don't want them. I don't need them. I'm just going to be me, my actors, and that's it. Because I just had major trust issues with people, because couldn't rely on anybody in high school and stuff like that. And even kind of my early college years, I didn't really get along with too many of the filmmakers, like 1 or 2 of them. So it was like, I'll just one-man army everything. So I would say, don't be a one-man army. Find help. Just find a crew, or just do what you got to do to make the project the best possible project it could be. And my second piece of advice, give a shit about the projects you're working on. Yeah. I would say if you don't have the passion for it, then don't do it. Because I think at the end of the day, you could tell when somebody cares about their project versus somebody who don't. Like, you clearly care. You put everything you had into this project, and it shows. And it's great. And I love that. That's one of the biggest things I look for in projects. Like, did the people care that they were making this project? And yes, you did. And that's one of my, good job, man. You just absolutely fantastic job. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Give a shit about the projects you're making, because it will show, and people do care about that. Don't make a project just because somebody said, oh, you have to make a feature, so I'm doing it out of an obligation. Don't do that. Make it because you want to and because you care. That's all. Yeah,
and if you don't give a shit about your project, how do you expect other people to give a shit about your project? Plain and simple. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. And I think I think for me, it's very similar to what you were saying, in your inspiring, speech towards the end, which is just do it. I spent so much time analyzing things of course you want a quality project. You want to provide passion and you want to do things, but sometimes you have to the best learning curve you have is doing it and not thinking about it. And you gotta pull the trigger. You gotta pull the trigger. You have the passion and you have plenty of planning and plenty of resources, but eventually you have to do the project. You got to do it, because otherwise, you'll never know. First of all, you'll never know if it could be something and turn into something. And more importantly, you're not going to learn everything in pre-production. You're going to learn the most you ever had in production. And then in post-production, you make the film three times. You do it in the writing, the filming, and then the editing. But if you spend so much time in number one, you're never going to really get to the full essence of that project. And also too is, don't give a shit what everybody thinks. And this is exactly what Adrian was saying, is that don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. Do what you want to do, regardless of what society may say, or regardless of of what your peers may say. You do what you're passionate about, and that's it. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to look yourself in the mirror.
And something you're so right. And something more industry specific. An advice that I would have, a more practical advice, would be for both actors and filmmakers. Try before shooting any film. It doesn't matter if it's found footage, if it's traditional. Pay the actors to live in character for a period before you begin shooting. Let's say you shoot in a certain location. Okay, you have a certain villa or whatever. Pay the actors, let's say, half the rate, the way you pay them for rehearsals. Pay them to live, like, say, for 2 weeks in advance, rent that location before shooting. Let them live in character there, interacting character, get used to that place, for them to feel that it's their place, to fill it with their energy and their thoughts and their feelings and everything and their dynamic. Because then when you will enter with the camera, you will enter with the camera in a reality which is already established. You won't be entering into a film set and then trying to create it from scratch, from zero, with directing actors. You will enter a reality which already is alive, breathing, and existing. And then you will have to do very little in terms of directing the actors, because they will already be that thing, what you need to be. But don't exaggerate. Don't do the way I did with We Put the World to Sleep, living for 5 years or 7 years in Canada. That's not healthy.
Fair enough. So Adrian, this is your opportunity to look directly into your camera and tell the good people where they can find all of your films, and talk about your social media plugs and all the great things of where the good people can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me. I have a link tree, but that link tree is complicated. I have a website. There's adriantzofei.com. Anyway, you can find my links from anywhere. If you write my name on the internet, you can find my IMDb, my website. Both my website and my IMDb has links to all my social media channels, from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I have a Patreon page. Patreon.com/my name, and on Patreon I'm also giving merch for patrons, for supporters. Practically after 3 months of contributions, you get Be My Cat merch, cups and t-shirts and posters and all that with Be My Cat. And also you get the credits in my upcoming movie, in We Put the World to Sleep, from thanks credits to executive producer credits. So, and exclusive info. On my Patreon, I post stuff which I don't post publicly. I've been production insights, all kinds of behind the scenes. So yeah,
very nice.
That's where you can find me, and also support me if you can.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for checking out this episode of the Nightmares Podcast. You can find us at the Nightmares Podcast on Midwest Horror Network, anywhere where podcasts are found: Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, all that great stuff. And then you can also check us out on all of our social medias at Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and
Slasher,
the application for all things horror. And also, if you could be so awesome to stab that like button, smash that subscribe, and click that little dingy bell to be notified every time we drop amazing content on our channel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on the Nightmares Podcast. Bye, guys.